The C-130 transport touched down at Nellis Air Force Base just after dawn, kicking up dust that painted the Nevada sky in shades of amber and gold. Captain Alina Reyes pressed her face against the small window, watching the rows of F-16s and F-22s lined up like sentinels guarding America's most elite fighter wing. Her heart hammered against her ribs, not from fear, but from pure, unfiltered anticipation. This was it. Everything she'd worked for. Everything she'd sacrificed. The cargo ramp lowered with a hydraulic hiss, and Alina grabbed her duffel bag, slinging it over her shoulder with practiced ease. The desert heat hit her like a physical force, but she welcomed it. She'd grown up in the sweltering summers of South Texas, the daughter of immigrants who'd crossed borders with nothing but hope and determination. Her father had worked double shifts at a meat packing plant so she could take flying lessons at the local airfield. Her mother cleaned houses while studying for her citizenship test at night. Failure wasn't an option, not for her, not after everything they'd given up. Fresh meat, someone called out from across the tarmac. Alina turned to see a group of pilots lounging near a hangar, their flight suits unzipped to the waist, aviator sunglasses glinting in the sun. They looked like they'd stepped out of a recruitment poster, square-jawed, confident, untouchable. One of them, a tall lieutenant with sandy hair and a smirk that could cut glass, pushed off from the wall and sauntered toward her. "You lost, sweetheart," he called out. "The admin building is that way." The other pilots laughed. Alina recognized the tone. She'd heard it before at flight school, at survival training, at every step of her career. She set her duffel down and met his gaze steadily. "Captain Alina Reyes," she said, her voice level, "reporting for duty with the 422nd Fighter Squadron." The lieutenant's smirk widened. "Oh, this is Rich. Morrison, Jake Morrison." He didn't offer his hand. "Let me guess, you're here because of some diversity initiative. Check the box, make the Pentagon happy." "I'm here because I graduated top of my class at flight school," Alina replied calmly. "But you can check my personnel file if you need confirmation, Lieutenant." "Top of your class at what, crop dusting?" Another pilot chimed in, triggering another round of laughter. Alina picked up her duffel, refusing to let them see her hands tremble with suppressed anger. "Excuse me, gentlemen. I need to check in with Colonel Brennan." As she walked away, she heard Morrison's voice carry across the tarmac. "Give her a week. She'll wash out or transfer to some desk job where she belongs." The base operations building was mercifully air-conditioned. Alina found the squadron commander's office on the second floor, knocked twice, and entered when a gruff voice called out. Colonel Marcus Brennan was everything she'd expected from his file, mid-50s, silver-haired, with the weathered face of a man who'd flown combat missions in 3 different conflicts. He looked up from a stack of paperwork, his expression unreadable. "Captain Reyes, have a seat." Alina sat ramrod straight, her hands folded in her lap. "I've reviewed your file," Brennan continued, leaning back in his chair. "Impressive flight scores. Your instructors say you've got natural instincts in the cockpit." He paused, studying her with pale blue eyes. "But test scores don't mean much out here. This is an operational squadron. We fly real missions with real consequences." "I understand, sir." "Do you?" Brennan stood, walking to the window that overlooked the flight line. "I'm going to be straight with you, Captain. Some of my pilots aren't thrilled about this assignment. They think the Air Force is social engineering instead of focusing on combat readiness." Alina's jaw tightened. "With respect, sir, I didn't ask for special treatment. I earned my wings the same way everyone else did." "I believe you," Brennan said, surprising her. "But belief doesn't change squadron dynamics. You're going to have to prove yourself every single day. Twice as hard for half the credit. That's just reality." "I'm ready for that, sir." Brennan almost smiled. "We'll see. Your first briefing is at 1400 hours, dismissed." The ready room fell silent when Alina entered that afternoon. 20 pairs of eyes tracked her movement as she found an empty seat in the back. Morrison sat front and center, surrounded by his crew, all of them wearing matching expressions of barely concealed contempt. Colonel Brennan entered and everyone snapped to attention. "Seats, gentlemen and lady," he added, nodding at Alina. "We've got a new pilot joining the 422nd. Captain Reyes comes to us from advanced flight training with top marks." "Affirmative action marks," someone muttered. Brennan's eyes flashed. "You got something to say, Lieutenant Kowalski?" "No, sir." "Good. Now, as is tradition, we need to assign our new pilot a call sign." Brennan pulled out a folder. "Suggestions." "Maria," Morrison called out immediately, his voice dripping with mockery. "You know, keep it authentic." The room erupted in laughter. Alina felt heat crawl up her neck, but she kept her face carefully neutral, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her hurt. Brennan frowned but didn't intervene. "Any other suggestions?" "Quota," someone else offered. More laughter. "Fine," Brennan said, his tone suggesting he was done with the discussion. "Maria it is, moving on to mission parameters." Alina barely heard the rest of the briefing. She stared at the wall, her father's voice echoing in her mind again. "They will try to make you small, Mija, but you are thunder. You are lightning. Let them underestimate you. It will be their mistake, not yours." That evening, Alina sat alone in her quarters, a small room in the junior officer housing that smelled faintly of industrial cleaner and old paint. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through photos. Her parents at her flight school graduation, her younger brother in his army uniform, her abuela holding a small American flag. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." Major Sarah Chen entered, an Asian-American woman in her late 30s with intelligent eyes and an armload of folders. "Captain Reyes, I'm Major Chen, Intelligence Division. Mind if I sit?" "Please." Chen settled into the room's only chair. "I watched your briefing today. That was brutal." Alina shrugged. "Nothing I haven't dealt with before." "I'm sure, but that doesn't make it right." Chen opened one of her folders. "I've been reviewing personnel files for a special project. Your name came up." "What kind of project?" "Can't say much yet, it's classified, but I wanted to give you a heads up. You're being considered for something big, something that could change everything." Chen stood. "Keep your head down, keep flying, and wait for orders. They're coming soon." After Chen left, Alina lay back on her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling. She thought about Morrison's smirk, about the call sign, Maria, that was designed to humiliate her, about all the men who tried to clip her wings before she even had a chance to fly. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Report to Building 7, Section D at 600 hours tomorrow. Come alone, bring nothing, tell no one. Authorization code, Wraith 7 Alpha." Alina read the message 3 times, her heart beginning to race again, but this time with a different kind of anticipation. Something was happening, something important. She deleted the message and closed her eyes, a small smile playing at her lips. Let them mock her, let them underestimate her, let them call her whatever they wanted. Soon they'd learn her real name. Soon they'd call her Ghost. The alarm screamed at 5:30 hours, but Alina was already awake, dressed in her flight suit, boots laced tight. She'd barely slept, her mind racing with questions about the cryptic message. Building 7, Section D didn't appear on any base map she'd seen. As she stepped into the pre-dawn darkness, the Nevada desert was cold enough to see her breath. She found Building 7 tucked behind the main hangars, a nondescript concrete structure that looked like a maintenance facility. Section D was accessible only through a biometric scanner. Alina pressed her thumb to the reader, half expecting it to reject her. Instead, a green light flashed, and a heavy steel door clicked open. Major Chen waited inside a small, sterile room filled with computer monitors. "Right on time, Captain. Have a seat." "Ma'am, what is this about?" Chen pulled up a series of flight performance metrics on the main screen. "For the past 6 months, The Air Force has been identifying pilots with specific skill sets. We're looking for people who think differently, who can adapt to rapidly changing combat scenarios, who can operate independently under extreme pressure." She turned to face Alina. "Your flight school instructors flagged you. Your simulation scores are exceptional, but it's your unconventional problem-solving that caught our attention." "What? I don't understand." "You will. For now, this conversation never happened. Continue your regular duties with the 422nd, but starting today, you'll also be running additional scenarios in Simulator Bay 3, after hours, alone." Chen handed her a data chip. "These are Level 5 classified training modules. They'll make regular combat sims look like video games." Alina pocketed the chip, her pulse quickening. "How long does this evaluation last?" "As long as it needs to." Chen's expression softened. "And Captain, what happened yesterday in the briefing, don't let it distract you. The best revenge is becoming so good they can't ignore you." The next 3 weeks became a blur of dual realities. During the day, Alina flew regular training missions with the squadron, enduring Morrison's constant needling and the cold shoulders from most of her fellow pilots. They assigned her the worst flight times, the most tedious patrol routes, the assignments no one else wanted. "Hey Maria, grab me a coffee, would you?" Morrison called out one morning in the ready room, his boots propped up on a chair. Alina walked past him without responding, studying the mission brief on the wall. "I'm talking to you," Morrison said, louder this time. "And I'm ignoring you, Lieutenant," Alina replied calmly, not turning around. "Unless you have something mission-relevant to discuss." A few pilots snickered, but most remained silent. The power dynamics were clear. Morrison came from a military dynasty, 3 generations of fighter pilots. His uncle was a general at the Pentagon. Alina came from nowhere with no one to protect her. But at night, in Simulator Bay 3, she entered a different world entirely. The classified scenarios Chen had given her were unlike anything she'd experienced. They weren't standard dogfights or bombing runs. These were deep penetration missions into hostile territory, flying experimental aircraft with capabilities that seemed almost science fiction. Stealth systems that bent radar waves, electronic warfare packages that could blind entire defense networks, flight profiles that required threading through mountains at Mach 1.5, 50 feet off the deck, in total darkness. Alina crashed virtually a dozen times in the first week. The scenarios were designed to be nearly impossible, enemy defenses that adapted in real time, weather conditions that changed without warning, equipment failures at critical moments. Each time she failed, she analyzed what went wrong, adjusted her approach, and tried again. By the end of the second week, she was completing missions other pilots had deemed unwinnable. One night, as she was running a particularly brutal scenario involving a strike on a hardened underground facility, she noticed she wasn't alone. Major Chen stood in the control booth, watching through the glass. Alina's virtual aircraft screamed through a mountain valley, surface-to-air missiles tracking her every move. Instead of trying to outrun them, the conventional approach, she flew directly toward the enemy radar installation, using the terrain to mask her approach until the last possible second. The missiles lost lock, confused by the ground clutter. She popped up, released her ordnance, and disappeared back into the valley before the enemy even knew what hit them. "Mission complete," the simulator announced. "Target destroyed, 0 casualties, new facility record." Alina emerged from the simulator, her flight suit soaked with sweat. Chen was smiling. "That was extraordinary," the major said. "You know what the previous record holder did? Came in high and fast, accepted the missile hit as inevitable, traded his aircraft for the target. You found a third option nobody else saw." "The valley approach seemed obvious once I studied the terrain," Alina said, grabbing a water bottle. "To you, maybe. That's the point." Chen pulled up Alina's performance data. "You've completed 47 scenarios. Your success rate is 89%. The next closest pilot is at 62%. Elena's eyes widened. There are other pilots doing this. 4 others across different bases. You're all being evaluated. Chen hesitated, then continued. Captain, how would you feel about a 3-month temporary assignment? Classified location, intensive training, no contact with your regular unit. When would it start? 2 weeks. But there's a catch. You can't tell anyone where you're going or why. Your squadron will be told you're on temporary assignment to Air Combat Command Headquarters. Some of them will assume you washed out and couldn't handle operational flying. Elena thought about Morrison's smirking face, about the way the other pilots excluded her from their conversations, about the call sign that was meant to diminish her. I'll do it, she said without hesitation. The next day, during a complex 4-ship training exercise, Elena's careful planning paid off in an unexpected way. The scenario involved air-to-air combat against a simulated enemy force. Morrison was flight lead, with Elena assigned as number 4, the least critical position, basically there to make up numbers. 15 minutes into the exercise, Morrison got tunnel vision chasing a kill and didn't notice 2 simulated enemy fighters bracketing his position. His wingmen were engaged elsewhere. In seconds, he'd be shot down. Elena broke from her assigned position without requesting permission. She accelerated, used a split-S maneuver to drop below the enemy fighters, then popped up behind them. 2 quick trigger pulls. Splash 2 bandits, she called calmly. Hawk, you're clear. Morrison said nothing over the radio. After they landed, Elena expected a reprimand for breaking formation. Instead, Morrison stormed past her without a word, his face flushed with anger and something else, humiliation. But Captain Omar Hassan, one of the few pilots who'd been civil to Elena, caught up with her as she headed to debrief. That was good flying, Rays, really good. Just doing my job. Yeah, well, you saved Morrison's ass, even if he's too proud to admit it. Hassan lowered his voice. Look, I know things have been rough for you here, but some of us see what you can do. Keep your head up. It was the first genuine kindness anyone in the squadron had shown her. Elena felt an unexpected lump in her throat. Thanks, Hassan. Call me Omar. And hey, wherever they're sending you on this mysterious assignment, good luck. Elena stared at him. How did you? I've been around long enough to recognize when someone's being pulled for something special. Omar smiled. Whatever it is, you earned it. That night, Elena received another encrypted message. Report to Peterson Space Force Base, Colorado on November 3rd. Project Wraith awaits. Your call sign for this assignment, Ghost. She read the word 3 times, Ghost. Not Maria, not Quota, not any of the diminishing labels they tried to pin on her. Ghost. Something fierce and proud unfurled in her chest. She thought about her father's words again, but this time she added her own. They tried to make me invisible. Now I'll show them what invisible really means. 2 weeks later, Elena boarded an unmarked transport aircraft, leaving Nellies behind. Morrison watched from the tarmac, his expression unreadable. Colonel Brennan had pulled her aside that morning. I don't know where you're going, Captain, but the orders came from very high up. Make us proud. I will, sir. As the aircraft climbed into the Nevada sky, Elena pressed her hand against the window, watching the base shrink below her. She was leaving behind the mockery, the doubt, the barriers they'd tried to place in her path. She was flying toward something else entirely. Something that would change everything. The transport aircraft descended through thick cloud cover, and when they broke through, Elena saw nothing but mountains and forests stretching to the horizon. No runways, no buildings, no sign of civilization. Her stomach tightened. Where exactly was Project Wraith? Then the pilot banked hard left, and Elena spotted it. A runway carved into the side of a mountain, so perfectly camouflaged it was invisible until you were almost on top of it. The aircraft touched down and immediately taxied into what appeared to be a natural cave. Massive blast doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder. "Welcome to nowhere, Captain," the loadmaster said with a grin. "Officially, you're not here. This place doesn't exist." Alina grabbed her gear and descended the ramp into a cavernous hangar carved from living rock. The facility was enormous, filled with aircraft she'd never seen before, sleek, angular fighters that looked like they'd been designed by someone who'd seen the future. Technicians in unmarked coveralls swarmed around the machines like ants. Captain Reyes, a woman in a flight suit, approached, her short dark hair showing streaks of premature gray. "Major Rachel Kim, Project Wraith lead instructor. Follow me." They walked through tunnels lit by harsh fluorescent lights, passing security checkpoints where armed guards scrutinized her credentials. Finally, they reached a briefing room where 4 other pilots waited, all wearing the same mixture of curiosity and wariness on their faces. "Take a seat," Major Kim said, closing the door. The room's lighting dimmed, and a holographic display materialized in the center of the table. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Project Wraith. You 5 represent the best tactical minds from across all branches of the military. You weren't selected for your perfect record or your family connections. You were chosen because you think differently." Kim gestured, and the hologram showed footage of a fighter jet being tracked by multiple radar systems, lit up like a Christmas tree. "Conventional stealth technology is becoming obsolete. Our adversaries have developed new radar frequencies, quantum sensors, infrared detection arrays that can spot our aircraft from hundreds of miles away. We needed a new approach." The hologram shifted, showing the same aircraft suddenly disappearing from every screen simultaneously. "We developed it," Kim continued. "Not just better stealth, active camouflage systems that adapt in real time, AI-assisted electronic warfare that predicts and counters enemy sensors before they can lock on, and flight profiles that exploit blind spots in even the most advanced detection grids. We call it Ghost Protocol." Alina leaned forward, her heart racing. This was beyond anything she'd imagined. "Over the next 3 months, you'll learn to fly like nothing exists that can catch you. You'll become invisible, not through technology alone, but through perfect integration of machine, tactics, and human intuition. Some of you won't make it through training. This is the hardest thing you'll ever do." Kim's eyes swept across them. "Questions?" A Navy pilot raised his hand. "Ma'am, if we wash out, what happens?" "You return to your unit with a classified commendation you can never talk about and the knowledge that you gave it your best shot. What you learn here stays here, regardless of outcome." Kim stood. "Get some rest. Training starts at 400, and from this point forward you don't use rank or real names. You'll be assigned call signs. Those are your only identities here." Alina's call sign came during her first flight. The aircraft she'd been assigned, designated only as X-47 Ghost, sat on the runway like a predator waiting to strike. Its skin seemed to shimmer and shift in the light, almost liquid. When she climbed into the cockpit, the neural interface helmet felt like slipping into another person's mind. "Ghost 7, you are cleared for takeoff," the tower announced. She'd been assigned the number 7. Not a call sign yet, just a designation. Alina pushed the throttles forward, and the aircraft leaped into the sky with almost violent acceleration. The power was intoxicating. Within seconds, she was supersonic, climbing through 30,000 feet like it was nothing. "Ghost 7, begin evasion protocol Alpha," Major Kim's voice crackled in her helmet. "Multiple threats inbound." Alina's displays lit up with simulated enemy radar trying to track her. She activated the countermeasures and watched in amazement as the radar signatures fragmented, multiplied, disappeared. It was like watching magic. But the enemy AI adapted faster than she expected. New radar frequencies swept toward her, and suddenly she was lit up again. "Threat lock, you're dead, Ghost 7, Kim announced flatly. Alina gritted her teeth and dove, using the terrain below to break the lock. But 2 more simulated missiles appeared on her 6. Every move she made, the enemy countered. After 10 minutes of brutal evasion attempts, she was killed 4 more times. She landed frustrated and exhausted. "Terrible performance," Kim said bluntly during the debrief. "Your flying like this is a regular fighter. It's not. You need to think three-dimensionally, not just in space, but in the electromagnetic spectrum. The aircraft can make you invisible, but only if you work with it, not against it." The next day was worse. Alina crashed virtually 6 times. The other pilots weren't doing much better. By the end of the first week, 2 of them had washed out, unable to handle the cognitive load of managing both flight and the complex electronic warfare systems simultaneously. That left 3: Alina, a Marine pilot named Collins, and an Air Force major named Stevens. The training intensified. They flew day and night, in all weather conditions, learning to slip through detection grids that would have been impossible to penetrate with conventional aircraft. Alina studied the systems obsessively, spending every spare moment in the simulators, pushing herself until her hands shook from exhaustion. In the second month, something clicked. They were running a night exercise, a deep penetration into simulated enemy territory with overlapping radar coverage and mobile SAM sites. Alina had failed this scenario 8 times, but this time, instead of fighting the enemy sensors, she listened to them. She felt the rhythm of their sweeps, found the gaps, the moments of uncertainty. She flew not where the radars weren't looking, but where they couldn't distinguish her from the background noise. She threaded through mountains at 500 knots, 50 feet off the deck, her aircraft's skin adapting to match the terrain below. When enemy radar swept over her, she was a ghost. There but not there, visible but unrecognizable, a flicker of doubt in the machine's mind. "Target locked," she whispered, designating the simulated command center. "Weapons away." The target disappeared in a flash of light. "Ghost 7 returned to base." Major Kim's voice came over the radio, but there was something different in her tone. "Outstanding work." Alina landed in the pre-dawn darkness, her hands still trembling from the adrenaline. Kim was waiting on the tarmac, along with several officers Alina hadn't seen before. "Captain Reyes," Kim said formally, "as of this moment your designation is no longer Ghost 7. She held out a patch, a silver specter against a black background. "Welcome to Wraith Squadron. Your call sign is Ghost. You've earned it." Alina took the patch, feeling its weight in her palm. Not a number anymore. Not a joke. A name that meant something. A name she'd earned through sweat and failure and refusing to quit. "Thank you, ma'am." Over the next month, Alina continued to excel. She mastered techniques the instructors said were theoretical, pulled off maneuvers they claimed were impossible. During a final evaluation, a simulated strike on a target protected by every defensive system America's adversaries possessed, Alina penetrated the defenses, destroyed the target, and exfiltrated without being detected even once. The evaluator, a grizzled colonel who'd been flying since the Gulf War, stared at his screens in disbelief. "In 30 years, I've never seen anything like that. You didn't just beat the scenario, you made it look easy." When graduation day arrived, only 3 pilots remained: Ghost, Collins, now designated Phantom, and Stevens, now Wraith 1. They stood at attention in a secure briefing room as a video feed from the Pentagon appeared on the main screen. A woman in a general's uniform looked at them with steel-gray eyes. "Congratulations, pilots. You've completed the most demanding training program in American military history. What you've learned here is now part of our nation's most critical defense capabilities. You are authorized to use Ghost Protocol only under direct orders from combatant commanders or higher. The techniques you've mastered remain classified at the highest levels." The general paused, her gaze settling on Alina. "Captain Reyes, your performance has been exemplary. You've set records that will stand for years. You're being awarded the Defense Superior Service Medal for your contributions to this program. Due to classification, you'll receive it in a closed ceremony, and you may never speak of why you received it." Alina's throat tightened. "I understand, ma'am." "Good, now return to your units, fly well, and remember, you're ghosts now. The enemy will never see you coming." The flight back to Nellie's gave Alina time to think. 3 months had transformed her from a mocked outsider into something else entirely, a weapon honed to perfection, a pilot with capabilities her squadron couldn't imagine. She touched the ghost patch in her pocket. Back at Nellie's, she'd still be Maria to Morrison and the others. They'd assumed she'd failed, been reassigned, proven them right. Let them think that, she decided. Let them underestimate her. Because one day, maybe soon, they'd learn the truth. They'd learn what ghost really meant. And when that day came, everything would change. The C-130 touched down at Nellie's just after sunset, the desert sky painted in shades of purple and gold. Alina descended the ramp with her duffel bag, the ghost patch safely hidden in her locker back at the classified facility. Here, she was just Captain Reyes again, just Maria. The thought made her smile grimly. The barracks were quiet when she entered. Most pilots were either flying night missions or at the officers' club. Alina unpacked methodically, placing her few belongings in the same cramped locker, the same narrow bed. It felt strangely small now, confining after 3 months of operating in a world of infinite possibilities. Her door burst open without warning. "Well, well, well," Morrison leaned against the doorframe, his trademark smirk firmly in place. "Look who decided to come back. How was your special assignment, Maria? They finally teach you how to file paperwork properly." Alina continued unpacking, not looking at him. "It was educational, Lieutenant." "I bet it was." Morrison pushed off the doorframe, stepping into her room uninvited. "You know what we all figured, that you couldn't hack it here, so they shuffled you off to some desk job at headquarters, maybe public affairs or something more, suited to your skill set. You can think whatever you want, Morrison." "Oh, I will." He noticed the tan line on her wrist where her watch had been. "What, they didn't even let you wear a watch at your desk job? Or were you just that bored you stopped caring what time it was?" The tan line was actually from the neural interface cuff she'd worn during flight training, but Alina wasn't about to explain that. "Is there something you actually need, Lieutenant? Or did you just come here to hear yourself talk?" Morrison's smirk faded slightly. He wasn't used to her pushing back. "Watch your tone, Captain. Just because you disappeared for 3 months doesn't mean you're special. You're back in the real Air Force now, where performance actually matters." "Then I'm sure you'll have no problem outperforming me," Alina said coolly, finally meeting his eyes. "Sir." Morrison stared at her for a long moment, something flickering behind his eyes, confusion, maybe, or the first hint of uncertainty. Then he turned and left, slamming the door behind him. Alina sat on her bed, exhaling slowly. 3 months of advanced training and she was right back where she started, except she wasn't the same person anymore. She just had to keep pretending she was. The next morning's briefing was predictably hostile. Colonel Brennan welcomed her back with a curt nod, but the other pilots barely acknowledged her presence. Morrison had clearly been spreading rumors during her absence. "Glad you could join us again, Captain," Brennan said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "You're back on the rotation. Standard patrol flights to start. Need to make sure you haven't gotten rusty." "Understood, sir." Morrison raised his hand. "Sir, with respect, shouldn't Captain Reyes go through a requal program? 3 months away from flying is a long time. Safety of the squadron and all that." Several pilots nodded in agreement. Brennan frowned. "Captain Reyes' assignment included flight operations, Morrison. I'm sure she's current." "But we don't know what she was flying, sir. For all we know, it was a desk and a flight simulator." Morrison's voice dripped with false concern. "I'm just thinking about the team." Alina felt her jaw tighten but kept her face neutral. She couldn't tell them she'd been flying the most advanced aircraft in the American arsenal. Couldn't tell them she'd logged more complex flight hours in 3 months than most of them flew in a year. "I'm happy to demonstrate my proficiency, Colonel," she said evenly. "That won't be necessary," Brennan said, though he looked annoyed. "You're cleared to fly, dismissed." Alina's first flight back was a simple combat air patrol, 2 aircraft flying a racetrack pattern over the desert for 4 hours. She was paired with Captain Hassan, who greeted her with genuine warmth. "Good to see you back, Reyes," Omar said as they walked to their aircraft. "The squadron's been pretty toxic without you here to give Morrison someone to pick on." "Happy to be of service," Alina replied dryly. "Seriously though, where did they send you? You look different, more, I don't know, confident." Alina chose her words carefully. "Just some additional training, nothing exciting." Omar studied her face, clearly not believing her, but he was professional enough not to push. "Well, whatever it was, I hope it was worth it." They launched at 900 hours, climbing into a cloudless sky. The F-16 felt sluggish compared to the X-47 Ghost, like driving a truck after piloting a sports car. But Alina adapted quickly, falling back into the familiar rhythms of standard flight operations. Reaper 2, maintain heading 090, Omar called over the radio, catching his slip. Alina smiled in her oxygen mask. Ghost. Even Omar had almost called her that. Major Kim's parting words echoed in her mind. "Your call sign follows you whether people know it or not. You've become Ghost. That's who you are now." 2 hours into the patrol, Alina noticed something on her radar, a glitch, a flicker at the edge of her screen. She focused on it, her Wraith training kicking in. The signature was wrong, too regular to be weather, too erratic to be another aircraft. "Reaper lead, I've got something anomalous at bearing 270, range approximately 40 miles. "I don't see anything on my scope," Omar replied. "Probably just ground clutter." But Alina had learned to trust her instincts. She adjusted her radar frequency, using a technique she'd learned at Wraith, and suddenly the contact became clear. A drone, flying low and slow, trying to stay hidden in the terrain. "Reaper lead, I've got a definite contact. Recommend we investigate." Omar hesitated, then agreed. They diverted course, and within 10 minutes they'd visually identified an unknown UAV operating in restricted airspace. Omar called it in, and within an hour, security forces had recovered what turned out to be a foreign intelligence drone that had been mapping the base's defenses. Back on the ground, Colonel Brennan personally debriefed them. "Good eyes, Captain Reyes," he said, studying her with renewed interest. "Most pilots would have dismissed that contact as noise. What made you pursue it?" "Just seemed wrong, sir. The pattern was too regular." Brennan nodded slowly. "Whatever training you got on your assignment, it seems to have sharpened your skills. Good work." As Alina left the briefing room, she heard Morrison in the hallway, talking to another pilot. "Lucky catch, that's all. Blind squirrel finds a nut eventually." Alina kept walking, but Omar caught up with her. "Don't listen to him. That was solid flying and you know it." "Thanks, Omar. Hey, some of us are grabbing food at the officers' club tonight. You should come. Not everyone in this squadron is an asshole." Alina hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, okay, I'll be there." But she never made it to the club. That evening, as Alina walked to her quarters to change, her phone buzzed with an encrypted message. Her heart began to race as she read it. "Maintenance irregularity detected on your assigned aircraft. Investigation ongoing. Do not fly tail number 841234 until further notice." The message was from Major Chen. Alina's blood ran cold. Her assigned aircraft, the one she'd flown that morning, had an irregularity. What kind of irregularity? She immediately diverted to the maintenance hangar, showing her credentials to the night crew supervisor. "I need to see the maintenance logs for tail number 841234. The supervisor, a grizzled master sergeant, pulled up the records. That bird just went through a pre-flight inspection this morning, signed off by. He squinted at the screen, Airman Kowalski. Lieutenant Kowalski's brother, Elena asked, her stomach sinking. Yeah, they're cousins actually. Why? I need to see that aircraft, now. What they found made Elena's hands shake. During her pre-flight inspection the next morning, supervised by a senior maintenance officer Chen had sent, they discovered that several hydraulic lines had been improperly secured. Not enough to cause immediate failure, but enough that they would have failed catastrophically during high-G maneuvering, exactly the kind of flying that happened during combat exercises. This is either gross incompetence or deliberate sabotage, the maintenance officer said grimly. Captain, did you have any hostile encounters with anyone recently? Elena thought about Morrison, about the mockery, about how much worse it had gotten since she'd returned, but she had no proof it was deliberate. Nothing I can confirm, sir. Well, this aircraft is grounded pending a full investigation. You're reassigned to tail number 880429 for now. The next day, during a routine patrol flight in her new aircraft, Elena's worst fears materialized. She was flying solo this time, a simple navigation exercise over the desert. Everything was normal until she began a standard banking turn at 15,000 feet. Suddenly, her hydraulic pressure warning light blazed red. The stick went mushy in her hands. Nellie's tower, Reaper 2 experiencing hydraulic failure, Elena transmitted, forcing her voice to stay calm despite her hammering heart. Declaring an emergency. Her training, both conventional and Wraith, took over. She ran through emergency procedures with mechanical precision, using manual reversion to maintain some control. The aircraft wanted to fall out of the sky, but Elena wouldn't let it. She calculated her glide ratio, her distance to base, her altitude. The numbers were bad, really bad. Reaper 2 recommend you eject, the tower controller urged. You're not going to make the runway. But Elena had flown the X-47 Ghost through impossible situations for 3 months. She'd threaded through mountains at 500 knots with inches of clearance. She'd landed experimental aircraft with failed systems that would have killed lesser pilots. This was just physics, just math, just flying. Negative tower, I'm bringing her home. She flew the aircraft like a brick with wings, nursing every foot of altitude, using every trick she knew. The runway appeared ahead, foam trucks already deployed. Elena lined up perfectly, killed her remaining airspeed at exactly the right moment, and greased the landing so smoothly the aircraft barely jolted when it touched down. The foam trucks raced alongside as she rolled to a stop, but there was no fire, no catastrophe. Just a dead aircraft and a pilot with ice water in her veins. Elena climbed out on shaking legs. Emergency crews swarmed the aircraft immediately. Colonel Brennan was waiting in the debriefing room, his face grim. That was some of the finest emergency flying I've seen in 20 years, he said without preamble. But Captain, we need to talk. Maintenance found irregularities in this aircraft too, same type as your other bird. This wasn't an accident. Elena met his eyes. Sir, I believe someone is trying to kill me. I believe you're right, Brennan said quietly, and I'm going to find out who. That night, Elena sat alone in her quarters. Her hands finally stopped shaking. Her phone buzzed. Major Chen. I heard what happened. Are you okay? I'm alive. That landing was extraordinary. Everyone's talking about it. Chen paused. Elena, things are heating up overseas. We may need Ghost Protocol activated soon. Can you still fly? Elena thought about Morrison, about the sabotage, about how close she'd come to dying. Then she thought about her training, about who she'd become, about the mission that mattered more than petty squadron politics. Yes, ma'am, I can fly. Good, because the world is about to find out what ghost really means. The call came at 300 hours. Elena was already awake, staring at the ceiling of her quarters, replaying the hydraulic failure in her mind. 2 accidents in 2 days. Colonel Brennan had launched a formal investigation, but whoever was behind the sabotage had covered their tracks well. Airman Kowalski had been reassigned pending review, but Morrison remained untouched, protected by his family's influence. Her encrypted phone buzzed with a priority alert. The message was simple: report to Building 7, Section D immediately. Transportation waiting outside. Elena dressed quickly, her heart already racing. Priority calls at 3 in the morning meant only one thing: something had gone catastrophically wrong somewhere in the world. A black SUV with government plates waited in the darkness. The driver, a stone-faced Air Force security officer, said nothing during the 20-minute drive to the classified facility. Major Chen met her at the entrance, her face drawn with exhaustion. "We have a situation," Chen said without preamble, leading Elena through the security checkpoints into a war room she'd never seen before. Satellite imagery detected this 48 hours ago. The main screen showed aerial photos of a remote mountain region. Elena recognized the terrain, somewhere in the South China Sea, probably one of the disputed territories that had been tension points for years. "Zoom in," Chen ordered. The image magnified, revealing a massive installation carved into a mountainside. Radar arrays, missile batteries, command bunkers, all heavily fortified and strategically positioned. "This is a game changer," Chen continued. "The technology they've deployed here is years ahead of what our intelligence predicted. It's a multi-layered integrated air defense system, quantum radar that can detect our stealth aircraft, hypersonic missiles that can engage targets at Mach 10, and AI-controlled tracking that adapts in real time. They've effectively created an impenetrable bubble of airspace." Elena studied the defenses, her Wraith training automatically analyzing approach vectors and vulnerabilities. "How big is the coverage area?" 200 nautical miles in every direction. They can detect and engage anything that flies within range. Chen pulled up more images. "And here's the real problem. This facility controls their entire regional defense network. If they activate it fully, they can deny us access to international waters, threaten our allies, and essentially redraw the strategic map of the Pacific." "Have we tried reconnaissance?" "3 times. 2 F-35s got lit up by their radar and had to abort before they even got close. An RQ-4 Global Hawk drone was shot down at the edge of their engagement zone. We sent our best stealth assets, and they couldn't get within 100 miles without being detected." Chen's voice dropped. "We lost good pilots, Elena. One of the F-35s barely made it back. The pilot said it was like the enemy could read his mind. Every evasion maneuver, every countermeasure, they were ready for it." Elena felt cold settle in her stomach. What does leadership want to do? "That's why you're here." Chen led her to another room where a secure video conference was already in progress. On the screen was General Patricia Vance, the same officer who'd presided over Elena's Wraith graduation. Behind her, Elena could see the seal of the Pentagon Situation Room. "Captain Reyes," General Vance said, her steel-gray eyes intense even through the video feed. "I apologize for the early hour, but we have a crisis that requires Ghost Protocol capabilities. Are you mission ready?" Elena stood at attention. "Yes, ma'am." "Good. Major Chen has briefed you on the facility." "Yes, General. It's a significant defensive installation." "It's more than that, Captain. Our intelligence indicates they plan to activate the full system in 72 hours. Once online, it will fundamentally alter the balance of power in the region. We cannot allow that to happen." Vance leaned forward. "Every conventional approach has failed. We've run hundreds of simulations, stealth bombers, cruise missiles, special operations insertions. The success rate is 0%. Whatever we send, they detect and destroy." Elena's mind raced. "You want a Ghost Protocol strike?" "We need one. This is exactly the scenario Wraith was designed for. a high-value target in a denied area with defenses that conventional assets cannot penetrate. Vance paused. I won't sugarcoat this, Captain. Our simulations show this mission has a 30% success probability even with Ghost Protocol. You'd be flying solo, deep into hostile territory, against defenses that have already proven they can track our best stealth technology. And if you're shot down... I understand, ma'am. Deniable operation, no rescue. Exactly. Vance's expression softened slightly. This is voluntary, Captain. I can't order you to take this mission. It's a suicide run by any conventional measure. If you decline, no one will think less of you. Elena thought about her parents, about her brother, about everyone who'd sacrificed so she could stand here at this moment. She thought about Morrison and his mockery, about the call sign, Maria, that was meant to diminish her, about all the people who'd tried to make her feel small. Then she thought about the ghost patch in her locker, about 3 months of impossible training, about becoming something more than human limitations suggested was possible. Permission to speak freely, ma'am. Granted. I didn't survive sabotage attempts and 3 months of hell just to back down from the mission I was trained for. Ghost Protocol exists for exactly this scenario. I can do this. Elena met the general's eyes through the screen. I will do this. Vance studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Very well, Captain. You're authorized to proceed with mission planning. You have 60 hours to prepare. We'll need a detailed tactical plan, equipment requirements, and contingency protocols. Major Chen will coordinate logistics. Ma'am, one question. Why me specifically? Phantom and Wraith 1 also completed the program. Major Stevens is currently deployed to the Middle East on another classified operation. Captain Collins. Vance hesitated. Collins attempted a Ghost Protocol mission 2 weeks ago against a different target. He didn't make it back. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. Collins, the Marine pilot who'd trained beside her, who'd celebrated with her when they graduated, was dead. I see, Elena managed. Collins was exceptional, Captain, but his mission profile was different, a hardened bunker with static defenses. He knew the risks and accepted them just as you're doing now. Vance's voice hardened. This is the reality of what we do. Ghost Protocol gives us capabilities other pilots don't have, but it doesn't make us invincible. Are you still willing? Elena thought about Collins, about his easy laugh and his fierce determination. He'd known the risks. He'd gone anyway, because that's what ghosts did. Yes, ma'am, I'm ready. Then Godspeed, Captain. The free world is counting on you. The screen went dark. The next 60 hours were a blur of mission planning that made Elena's Wraith training look simple by comparison. She studied every piece of intelligence about the facility, thermal imagery, electromagnetic signatures, patrol patterns, even weather predictions for the next week. She memorized topographic maps until she could fly the terrain in her sleep. Major Chen brought in specialists, electronic warfare experts, meteorologists, strategic planners. They built a 3-dimensional model of the target area, complete with real-time updates as new satellite data came in. The key is here, Elena said, pointing to a narrow valley that approached the facility from the northwest. Their radar coverage has a slight gap, less than 2 degrees of arc, only visible from this specific angle. If I time it perfectly with their patrol rotation and use the terrain masking, I can get within 20 miles before they have any chance of detecting me. That valley is barely wide enough for an aircraft, one of the planners objected. At night, in potentially bad weather, with mountains on both sides. I've flown tighter approaches in training, Elena interrupted. This is doable. Even if you make it through the valley, you'll be exposed during the final attack run, another analyst pointed out. Their close-in defenses will have multiple opportunities to engage. Not if I'm fast enough. Elena traced the route on the display. I come in low, pop up for weapon release, and I'm back in the terrain before their systems can track and engage. Total exposure time, 8 seconds. 8 seconds against hypersonic missiles and AI-controlled guns, Chen said quietly. 8 seconds where I'm the fastest thing in the sky, Alina replied with more confidence than she felt. They refined the plan obsessively. Backup routes, abort criteria, contingency actions for every possible failure mode. Alina would fly a modified X-47 Ghost with enhanced stealth capabilities and weapons specifically designed for this mission. On the second day, Colonel Brennan appeared at the facility. Alina was surprised to see him. Few people outside Wraith had clearance for this location. "Captain," he said, finding her in the planning room at midnight, "may I speak with you privately?" They walked to an empty conference room. Brennan looked older than Alina remembered, the weight of command showing in the lines around his eyes. "I don't know the details of what you're planning," he began, "but I know it's dangerous. General Vance briefed me on the broad strokes. She wanted me to know in case." He trailed off. "In case I don't come back," Alina finished. "Yes," Brennan met her eyes. "Captain, I owe you an apology. When you first joined my squadron, I didn't protect you from the toxic environment. I told myself it would make you stronger, that you needed to prove yourself. That was cowardice on my part, not leadership." Alina was quiet for a moment. "Did you find out who sabotaged my aircraft?" "Not definitively. The investigation is ongoing. But Captain, when you return from this mission, and I believe you will, things are going to be different. I'm cleaning house in the 422nd, starting with Morrison." "Sir, his family connections." "I don't give a damn about his family connections," Brennan said fiercely. "He endangered one of my pilots. That's unforgivable, regardless of who his uncle is. When you get back, you'll be returning to a squadron that respects you. I guarantee it." Alina felt unexpected emotion tighten her throat. "Thank you, sir." "Don't thank me, just come back alive." Brennan stood. "And Captain, whatever they're sending you to do, I've seen your emergency landing, I've seen your skills. You're the best pilot I've ever commanded. If anyone can pull off an impossible mission, it's you." After he left, Alina returned to the planning room, where Major Chen was reviewing final equipment checks. 12 hours until departure," Chen said. "How are you feeling?" "Scared," Alina admitted, "but ready." "Good, fear keeps you sharp." Chen pulled up one final briefing slide. "Alina, Collins didn't fail because he lacked skill. He failed because he got unlucky. A patrol shifted unexpectedly, putting hostile forces in his path when they shouldn't have been there. Sometimes, even perfect planning isn't enough." "I know. But I believe you can do this. You're not just technically proficient, you think like no other pilot I've seen. You find solutions where others see only obstacles." Chen smiled slightly. "You're Ghost for a reason." Alina nodded, feeling the weight of the call sign, the responsibility, the impossible expectations. 12 hours, until she would fly into the teeth of the most advanced defenses on Earth. 12 hours, until she would prove that Ghost was more than just a name. 12 hours, until she became a legend or a memory. She touched the Ghost patch she now wore openly on her flight suit. "Let's make sure Collins didn't die for nothing," she said quietly. "Let's show them what Ghosts can do." The sun was just beginning to paint the Nevada desert in shades of amber when Alina walked across the tarmac at Nellis Air Force Base. She'd flown back from the classified facility 3 hours earlier, her mind still buzzing with mission parameters and contingency plans. But there was one more critical task before she could leave for the operation: assembling her strike team. Colonel Brennan had given her complete authority to select her pilots. The Pentagon had authorized a 4-ship formation, Alina as mission commander, plus 3 supporting aircraft. They would provide electronic warfare support, backup strike capability, and, if everything went catastrophically wrong, witnesses to ensure her sacrifice wasn't in vain. The squadron was already assembled in the main briefing room when Alina entered. Every pilot in the 422nd was present, standing at attention. The room fell silent as she walked to the front, carrying a classified folder marked with red diagonal stripes. "At ease," Alina said, setting the folder on the podium. She scanned the faces before her, some curious, some skeptical, some openly hostile. Morrison stood in the back, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. 72 hours ago," Alina began, "I was activated for a classified operation. I'm now authorized to brief you on portions of that mission and to select a strike team. What I'm about to tell you is classified top secret. Anyone not comfortable with that level of security commitment may leave now." No one moved. Alina opened the folder and activated the main display screen. Satellite imagery of the mountain fortress appeared, deliberately pixelated to obscure some details. "This is a high-value target in a denied area. I can't tell you exactly where it is, but I can tell you it represents a strategic threat that must be neutralized within the next 48 hours. The defenses are unlike anything we've faced. Advanced radar, hypersonic missiles, AI-controlled tracking systems. 3 previous reconnaissance attempts have failed." Murmurs rippled through the room. "Our mission is to penetrate these defenses, destroy the primary target, and exfiltrate before enemy forces can respond. I'll be flying mission lead using specialized aircraft and tactics. I need 3 pilots to provide support: electronic warfare, backup strike capability, and combat search and rescue if needed." Lieutenant Morrison's hand shot up. "Question, Captain. Why you? No disrespect, but we have more experienced pilots in this squadron. Major Phillips has combat deployments. Captain Ramos flew in Syria. What makes you qualified to lead a mission this critical?" The challenge was clear in his voice, but Alina was ready for it. "Fair question, Lieutenant. The answer is that I've completed specialized training for exactly this type of deep penetration strike. I can't discuss the details due to classification, but I'm the only pilot in this squadron qualified for the primary mission role." She paused. "However, I'm not asking anyone to follow me based on faith. I'm asking for volunteers who trust their own skills and are willing to accept mission parameters they can't fully understand." Captain Omar Hassan stepped forward immediately. "I'm in, Captain. You need a wingman, you've got one." Alina felt gratitude wash over her. "Thank you, Omar. You'll fly Falcon 2, electronic warfare and support role." "I volunteer as well," a voice called out. Captain Sarah Vega, one of the squadron's most experienced pilots, raised her hand. "I've got 1,500 hours in the F-16 and combat experience. If this mission is as important as you say, you need veterans backing you up." "Appreciate it, Captain Vega. You'll be Falcon 3, backup strike capability." That left one slot. Alina scanned the room, looking for the right combination of skill and adaptability. Her eyes settled on Lieutenant David Park, a quiet pilot who'd never been part of Morrison's clique but had consistently posted exceptional training scores. "Lieutenant Park, I'd like you on this mission. You have the best instrument flying scores in the squadron, and if weather becomes a factor, that could be critical." Park looked surprised but nodded firmly. "Yes, ma'am, I'm honored." "Good. Falcon 4, search and rescue coordination and backup navigation." Alina closed the folder. "The 4 of us will begin intensive mission-specific training in 6 hours. Everyone else, you're dismissed. Thank you for your professionalism." As the pilots filed out, Morrison pushed his way to the front. "This is ridiculous, Rays. You disappear for 3 months, come back acting like you're some kind of special operator, and now you're running a classified strike mission. Who the hell do you think you are?" Alina met his gaze steadily. "I'm the pilot the Pentagon specifically requested for this operation, Lieutenant. That's all you need to know." "My uncle is a general at—" "I'm aware of your family connections," Alina interrupted. "They're irrelevant to this mission. Now if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." Morrison's face flushed red. "You're going to get people killed with this cowboy bullshit." No, Lieutenant, I'm going to save lives, that's what we do. Elena picked up her folder. But I understand your concern, which is why I didn't select you for the team. This mission requires trust, and we clearly don't have that between us. For a moment, Morrison looked like he might explode. Then, unexpectedly, his expression shifted. Something flickered behind his eyes that might have been shame or realization or both. "You're right," he said quietly so only Elena could hear. "We don't have trust, and that's on me." He glanced away. "I hope your mission succeeds, Captain, genuinely." Elena studied him, surprised by the apparent sincerity. "Thank you, Lieutenant." After Morrison left, Colonel Brennan approached from the back of the room. "Good choices," he said. "Hassan's solid, Vega's got combat experience, and Park is steady under pressure. You picked a strong team." "I picked people who won't hesitate when things get complicated, sir." "Things are definitely going to get complicated." Brennan handed her another folder. "Updated intelligence came in an hour ago. The target is accelerating their activation timeline. You now have 36 hours instead of 48. Elena's stomach tightened. "That changes the weather window. We'll be flying in marginal conditions." "I know, but it's not negotiable. If that facility goes fully operational, the strategic consequences are catastrophic." Brennan's voice lowered. "Elena, I'm not supposed to know the full details of your mission, but I can read between the lines. This is a one-way trip unless everything goes perfectly." "I'm aware, sir." "Your parents, does your family know?" Elena shook her head. "They think I'm on a routine training deployment. It's better that way." Brennan nodded slowly. "I've drafted letters for Hassan, Vega, and Park's families, just in case. Do you want me to prepare one for yours?" The question hit harder than Elena expected. A letter. The military's final message to families when their loved ones didn't come home. "Yes, sir, please," she swallowed hard. "Tell them I was doing what I loved. Tell them I was proud to serve. And tell my father. Tell him his daughter made him proud." "I will." Brennan extended his hand. "Good hunting, Ghost." Elena shook it, the call sign feeling both empowering and heavy. Ghost. Not Maria, not the outsider. The phantom that would slip through impossible defenses and strike before the enemy knew she was there. Or die trying. The mission briefing with her selected team began at 1400 hours in a secure facility. Elena stood before Hassan, Vega, and Park, the weight of command settling on her shoulders. "Thank you all for volunteering," she began. "What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room. The mission we're flying is a deep penetration strike against a strategic target. The defenses are more advanced than anything in our threat libraries. Success probability, even with our best planning, is estimated at 30%. Park's eyes widened slightly, but no one spoke. Elena activated the main display, showing the three-dimensional terrain model. "Here's what we're up against." For the next 2 hours, she walked them through every detail. The approach vector through the narrow valley, the radar gaps they'd exploit, the timing that had to be perfect to the second. She explained the weapons loadout, the electronic warfare plan, the emergency procedures. "The key is here," Elena pointed to the critical moment. "I'll be making the primary strike run. Your job is to create electromagnetic chaos, jam their communications, spoof their radars, make them look everywhere except where I actually am. You're the magicians creating the distraction while I deliver the payload." Hassan studied the terrain model. "That valley is tight, Ghost. What's our spacing?" 3-mile intervals. I go first, you follow at exactly 90-second spacing. Any closer and we risk detection. Any farther and the timing falls apart." Vega raised her hand. "And if you're shot down during your run?" "Then you abort an RTB," Elena said firmly. "This isn't a suicide mission. If I fail, the backup plan is to preserve assets and try again with different tactics." "Bullshit," Vega said bluntly. "If you go down, one of us takes the shot. We didn't volunteer to run away." Alina started to object, but Hassan cut her off. She's right. We're a team. We finish the mission together or we don't finish it at all. Park nodded agreement. Alina felt emotion tighten her chest. These pilots, people who barely knew her, who'd heard nothing but mockery about her for months, were willing to die to complete a mission they didn't fully understand, led by a captain they had every reason to doubt. "Okay," she said quietly. "If I'm hit, Falcon 2 assumes mission lead and takes the shot." Agreed. Agreed, Hassan said. They spent the next 36 hours in intensive training. Alina couldn't give them access to the X-47 Ghost or explain all of her capabilities, so she taught them the mindset instead: how to think like shadows, how to exploit gaps in detection grids, how to become invisible through tactics rather than just technology. She drilled them on the timeline until they could execute it in their sleep: 90 seconds between aircraft, 8 seconds of exposure during the strike, 30 seconds to egress before close-in defenses could track and engage. The margins were razor-thin. The night before departure, Alina sat alone in the ready room, studying the mission plan one final time. The door opened and Morrison entered. He stopped when he saw her. "Didn't know anyone was here," he said. "It's fine, I'm almost done." Morrison hesitated, then sat down several chairs away. They sat in awkward silence for a moment. "Look," Morrison finally said, "I've been a complete asshole to you. The sabotage investigation. They interviewed me today. They haven't proven anything, but Brennan made it clear he thinks my attitude created an environment where someone felt emboldened too." He trailed off. "Did you know about it?" Alina asked directly. "No, I swear I didn't, but I created the climate. I made you a target." Morrison's voice was thick with something that might have been regret. "Kowalsk is my cousin. He heard me talking shit about you for months. Even if I didn't order it, I'm responsible." Alina studied him. This privileged, arrogant pilot who'd made her life hell because she threatened his sense of natural order. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you might not come back from wherever you're going tomorrow, and I couldn't live with myself if—" Morrison stood abruptly. "Just come back alive, okay? So I can apologize properly, so I can be better." He left before Alina could respond. She sat alone again, thinking about second chances, about redemption, about how people could surprise you. Her phone buzzed, a message from her father: "Thinking of you, Mija, fly safe, come home." Alina typed back, "Always, Papa, I love you." At 400 hours, Alina and her team walked to their aircraft. The desert was still dark, stars blazing overhead like diamonds scattered across black velvet. The F-16 stood ready, armed and fueled. Colonel Brennan met them on the flight line. "This is it," he said simply. "Godspeed, all of you, make us proud." Alina climbed into her cockpit, running through pre-flight checks with automatic precision. But her real aircraft, the X-47 Ghost, waited at the classified facility. This F-16 would get her there. Then the real mission would begin. As the four-ship formation took off into the darkness, Alina looked back at Nellie's one last time. In 36 hours, she'd either be a hero or a memory. Time to find out which. Time to show them what Ghost really meant. The X-47 Ghost sat on the classified runway like a predator carved from midnight. Its skin absorbed light rather than reflected it, making the aircraft appear as a void in reality, a hole in the universe shaped like violence. Alina approached it in the pre-dawn darkness, her flight suit already soaked with nervous sweat despite the cool desert air. Major Chen waited beside the aircraft, her face illuminated by the glow of a tablet. Final intelligence update just came in. Weather's worse than predicted, clouds ceiling at 8,000 feet over the target area, visibility less than 2 miles. Wind gusts up to 40 knots in the valley. "Perfect," Alina said, and she meant it. Bad weather would obscure her approach, force the enemy to rely more heavily on radar that Ghost protocol could deceive. Your support team launched from Nelly's 30 minutes ago. They'll rendezvous with you at Waypoint Delta, 90 miles from the target. Chen handed Alina the tablet. Final authentication codes. Memorize them now. The tablet will auto-wipe in 60 seconds. Alina studied the codes, complex alphanumeric sequences that would unlock the weapons systems and confirm her identity to the distant command authority monitoring this mission. She committed them to memory through repetition, letting the numbers burn into her consciousness. The tablet screen went dark. "Captain," Chen said quietly, "Collins told me something before his last mission. He said the hardest part wasn't flying into danger. It was the moment before, when you knew you could still walk away. Once you're in the cockpit, training takes over, but right now, you still have a choice." Alina looked at the ghost, at this impossible machine that represented humanity's cutting edge. She thought about her parents, about Morrison's unexpected moment of vulnerability, about Collins who'd flown into darkness and never returned. "I made my choice when I earned this call sign," Alina said. "I'm not walking away." Chen smiled sadly. "I knew you'd say that. Good luck, Ghost, come back to us." Alina climbed into the cockpit, and the canopy sealed with a hydraulic hiss. The neural interface helmet settled over her head, and suddenly she wasn't just sitting in an aircraft, she was becoming one with it. The ghost systems merged with her consciousness, displays appearing in her peripheral vision, threat warnings manifesting as intuitive feelings rather than just lights and sounds. "Ghost 1, you are cleared for departure," the tower announced. "Godspeed." Alina advanced the throttles, and the ghost leaped forward with violent acceleration. Within seconds, she was supersonic, climbing through 20,000 feet like it was nothing. The aircraft responded to her thoughts as much as her hands, the neural interface creating a symbiosis between pilot and machine that conventional fighters couldn't match. 90 minutes later, she rendezvoused with her support team at the designated coordinates. Hassan, Vega, and Park flew their F-16s in tight formation, barely visible in the dim pre-dawn light. "Ghost 1, Falcon 2 has you visual," Hassan transmitted. "Holy shit, is that what you've been flying?" "Affirm, Falcon 2. Maintain radio discipline from this point forward. We're entering hostile tracking range in 15 minutes." The four-ship formation proceeded in silence, dropping to low altitude as they approached enemy airspace. Alina could feel the ghost stealth systems activating, electromagnetic signatures shifting and adapting, making the aircraft progressively harder to detect. On her displays, she watched enemy radar sweeps pass over her position, probing, searching, but finding nothing. She was invisible, a ghost indeed. "Approaching the valley," Alina transmitted. "Beginning final approach. Falcon 2, commence electronic warfare in 90 seconds. Copy, Ghost 1. You'll package armed and ready." The valley appeared ahead, a narrow slash through the mountains, barely 300 feet wide in places, with sheer rock walls rising thousands of feet on either side. Alina dropped to 50 feet above the valley floor, her airspeed pushing 500 knots. At this speed, she had less than a second to react to any obstacle. The neural interface made it possible. She didn't think about flying, she simply flew, her consciousness merged with the aircraft's systems, reading the terrain through sensors and instinct simultaneously. The ghost threaded through the valley like smoke through fingers, invisible and untouchable. Behind her at 90-second intervals, Hassan, Vega, and Park followed in their F-16s. They didn't have stealth capabilities, but they had something almost as valuable: Alina's exact flight path programmed into their navigation systems. They flew through her wake, exploiting the same radar gaps, trusting her completely. "You're active," Hassan transmitted tersely. "Enemy radars are getting confused." On Alina's displays, she watched the electromagnetic chaos unfold. Hassan's electronic warfare package was flooding the enemy's sensors with false targets, ghost images that appeared and disappeared, pulling defensive attention away from the valley approach. But then everything went wrong. Ghost 1 Falcon 4, Park's voice cut through the radio sharp with alarm. I've got enemy aircraft launching from the facility. 2. No, 4 contacts. Fast movers heading our way. Alina's blood went cold. The intelligence had been clear. No enemy fighters were supposed to be based at this facility. But Park's radar was tracking them unmistakably. Falcon 4, can you identify? Alina asked, her mind racing through options. Negative ID, unknown type. They're fast ghost, really fast, showing Mach 2.5 and accelerating. Hypersonic interceptors. The enemy had deployed their most advanced fighters to protect this facility, and Alina's team was flying straight into their teeth. All Falcons break formation. Evasive pattern Delta. Do not engage unless fired upon. Alina calculated rapidly. If she aborted now, they'd never get another chance. The element of surprise was gone, but the mission could still succeed if she moved fast enough. Ghost 1, you need to abort, Vega called out. We can't protect you from 4 hypersonic fighters. Negative, I'm continuing to target. Falcons, your new mission is survival. Lead those fighters away from my approach vector. Ghost, that's suicide, Hassan protested. That's an order, Falcon 2. Execute now. For a heartbeat, Alina thought they might refuse. Then Hassan's voice came back, steady despite the fear she knew he felt. Copy, Ghost 1, Falcon's breaking off. We'll give you the time you need. Make it count. The 3 F-16s broke hard right, climbing and accelerating, deliberately painting themselves on enemy radar, drawing the hunters away from their prey. Alina watched them go, knowing she might have just sent them to their deaths, but the mission came first. It had to. She pushed the Ghost deeper into the valley, her airspeed increasing to maximum. The target facility appeared on her sensors, 12 miles and closing fast. The close-in defenses would be activating any second now. Falcon 2 is engaged, Hassan's voice crackled with strain. These fighters are on us, deploying countermeasures. Falcon 4, break left. Alina forced herself to focus. She couldn't help them now. She could only complete the mission. 8 miles. The valley opened up ahead, giving her the approach angle she needed. She began climbing, trading airspeed for altitude, preparing for the pop-up strike maneuver. Falcon 4 is hit, Park's panic transmission cut through. I'm losing hydraulics, can't maintain. The transmission ended abruptly. Park, Vega screamed. David, eject, eject. 6 miles. Alina's hands were locked on the controls, her entire world narrowing to the mission parameters. Pop up at 4 miles. Acquire target. 8 seconds of exposure. Weapon release. Egress. Ghost 1, Falcon 2. Hassan's voice was ragged now, stressed beyond measure. Park went down. He punched out, but he's in enemy territory. We need to. Continue your mission, Falcon 2, Alina said, her voice robotic with forced calm. Complete your objectives. 4 miles. Alina pulled back on the stick, and the Ghost pitched up violently, trading her low-altitude invisibility for the altitude needed to deliver weapons. Immediately, every defensive system on the facility locked onto her. Threat warning screamed, missiles launched, AI-controlled guns tracked her trajectory. But Alina had trained for this exact moment for 3 months. She wasn't faster than the missiles, nothing was, but she was smarter. She knew exactly where the defensive systems would predict her flight path, and she flew somewhere else entirely. The Ghost twisted through the air in maneuvers that would have killed a normal pilot, pulling G-forces that grayed her vision even through the pressure suit. The neural interface kept her conscious, kept her flying, kept her alive. 2 missiles flashed past, missing by feet. A third exploded as Alina deployed countermeasures at the perfect microsecond. A fourth was still tracking, but she had no more countermeasures left. Target acquired, weapons armed. Ghost 1, Falcon 3, Vega's voice. I'm coming back for you, hang on. Negative Falcon 3, stay clear. The final missile was seconds from impact. Alina had one chance. She released her weapons, precision-guided munitions that arrowed toward the facility's command center, and simultaneously executed a split-S maneuver so violent the Ghost's airframe groaned in protest. The missile shot past, confused by her sudden reversal. Alina rolled inverted, diving back toward the terrain, trading altitude for speed. Behind her, the world exploded. Her weapons struck home, penetrating deep into the facility before detonating. Secondary explosions rippled across the mountainside as ammunition stores cooked off, as fuel tanks ignited, as the entire integrated defense network collapsed in cascading failure. Target destroyed, Alina transmitted, barely believing it. I repeat, target destroyed, all Falcons RTB. But the celebration was short-lived. New threat warnings blazed across her cockpit. The facility's close-in defenses, operating on backup power and automatic targeting, had locked onto her egress path. A wall of anti-aircraft fire erupted in front of her, thousands of rounds per second, a curtain of death impossible to evade. Alina flew straight into it. The Ghost's stealth coating ablated under the impacts, armor plating sparked and cracked. A round punched through her right wing, another shattered her canopy, spraying her with plexiglass fragments. Hydraulic fluid streamed from ruptured lines. Ghost 1 is hit, she transmitted, fighting the controls as the aircraft began to shudder. Heavy damage, I'm losing. The left engine exploded. Fire warnings shrieked. The Ghost pitched nose down, spiraling toward the ocean below. Alina, Hassan's voice raw with emotion. Eject, get out. She tried. The ejection handle wouldn't respond. The canopy was jammed from battle damage. 15,000 feet. The ocean rushed up to meet her, dark and unforgiving. Alina stopped fighting the spin and focused everything on restarting the right engine. One chance. The ignition sequence required precisely the right airspeed, the right altitude, the right fuel mixture. 10,000 feet. Her vision tunneled. The neural interface was failing, systems crashing all around her. 5,000 feet. She hit the ignition. Nothing. 3,000 feet. She hit it again. The engine coughed, caught, roared to life. Alina pulled out of the spin so low that spray kicked up from the ocean surface. The Ghost screamed in protest, its damaged airframe barely holding together. She leveled off at wave-top height, nursing the crippled aircraft toward friendly airspace. Ghost 1 to all Falcons, I'm still here. Damaged but flyable, status report. Falcon 2, RTB with battle damage, I'm okay. Falcon 3, unharmed. Holy shit, Ghost, we thought you were dead. Silence from Falcon 4. Falcon 2, Alina said quietly. Did you see Parks shoot? Affirmative, he's alive, but Ghost, he's in enemy territory and we can't. I know, Alina's voice broke slightly. I know. She limped toward the extraction point, her aircraft dying around her by degrees. Oil pressure failing, hydraulics gone, electrical systems flickering. Every mile was a miracle. Ahead, she saw the tanker aircraft that would refuel her barely enough to reach the recovery carrier. If she could make it that far. Ghost 1, this is Rescue 7, a new voice on the radio. We have your position. You're not going to make the carrier. Recommend you eject over water. We'll pick you up. Alina looked at her fuel gauge. The voice was right. She had maybe 10 minutes of flight time left. But the Ghost, this incredible machine, this marvel of engineering, the aircraft that had just accomplished the impossible, if she ejected, it would crash into the ocean and be lost forever. Enemy forces would recover it, reverse engineer it, steal years of American technological advantage. Negative, Rescue 7, I'm bringing her home. Ghost 1, the numbers don't work, you can't. Watch me. Alina flew on, coaxing every last mile from the dying aircraft. She shut down non-essential systems, optimized her flight path, and simply refused to quit. The carrier appeared on the horizon, a gray speck against endless blue. 5 miles out, her last engine began to fail. 3 miles out, she lost all hydraulics. The flight controls were now purely mechanical, requiring enormous strength just to make the smallest adjustment. 1 mile out, she was gliding, the engine completely dead, the Ghost transforming from cutting-edge fighter into 40,000-pound brick. The carrier's arresting wires were her only hope. Miss them, and she'd crash into the ocean just short of salvation. Alina lined up perfectly, her years of training and 3 months of impossible missions all coming down to this single approach. No power, no hydraulics, just skill and determination and a refusal to fail. The Ghost dropped onto the carrier deck with a teeth-rattling impact. The tail hook caught the number 3 wire. The aircraft slammed to a halt so violently Alina's head smashed against the cockpit frame despite her helmet. Then silence, except for the sound of her own ragged breathing. Deck crews swarmed the aircraft. Medical personnel pried open the jammed canopy. Hands reached in to help her out. Alina climbed down on shaking legs, staring at the Ghost. The aircraft was destroyed, shot full of holes, burned, broken, but it had brought her home. Captain Reyes, a Navy commander, approached. "Are you injured?" "I'm fine. The mission. Did we get confirmation? Is the target destroyed?" "Satellite imagery confirms complete destruction of the facility." "You did it, Captain. You actually did it." Alina nodded once, then her legs gave out. Strong hands caught her before she hit the deck. As they carried her to medical, she thought about Park, floating down into enemy territory, his fate unknown. About Hassan and Vega, who'd risked everything. About Collins, who hadn't made it back. She'd completed the mission. She'd proven Ghost protocol worked. But the cost, God, the cost. Her last thought before exhaustion claimed her was of Morrison's words, "Come back alive so I can apologize properly." Well, she'd kept that promise. Now came the hard part, living with what it had taken to succeed. Alina woke in the carrier's medical bay 14 hours later, her body a symphony of pain. Every muscle ached, her head throbbed where it had struck the cockpit frame, and her hands were raw from gripping the controls during those final desperate minutes. A Navy doctor stood beside her bed, checking monitors. "Welcome back, Captain," he said with a slight smile. "You had us worried. Mild concussion, severe dehydration, exhaustion, and enough adrenaline crash to knock out a horse. But you'll live." "Lieutenant Park," Alina croaked, her throat raw. "Any news?" The doctor's expression shifted. "I'll let your command brief you on operational matters. For now, you need rest." But rest was impossible. Alina's mind kept replaying the mission, the missiles screaming past, the facility exploding, Park's panicked transmission as his aircraft was hit. She'd sent him into that danger. She'd given the order that put him in enemy hands. Major Chen appeared in the doorway an hour later, carrying a secure tablet. Her face was drawn with exhaustion that matched Alina's own. "How are you feeling?" Chen asked, pulling up a chair. "Like I got hit by a truck, Park." Chen hesitated and Alina's heart sank. "He's alive. Navy SEALs extracted him 6 hours ago. He's banged up, fractured leg from the ejection, some cuts and bruises, but he'll recover fully. The enemy didn't have time to move him before our rescue team arrived." Relief flooded through Alina so powerfully she felt tears sting her eyes. "Thank God, Hassan and Vega." "Both safe. Hassan took some shrapnel from a near miss, but nothing serious. Vega's aircraft has some battle damage, but she's fine." Chen activated the tablet. "Alina, you need to see this. Satellite imagery from 30 minutes after your strike." The screen showed the facility, or what remained of it. The mountainside was a crater, secondary explosion still visible in the infrared. The entire defense network, the radar arrays, the command bunkers, all of it reduced to rubble. Complete mission kill, Chen said quietly. The threat is neutralized. Intelligence estimates it would take them 5 years minimum to rebuild, and by then the strategic window will have closed. You changed the entire balance of power in the Pacific with one mission. Alina corrected. Hassan, Vega, and Park made it possible. They drew off those fighters. They gave me the opening I needed. I know, they're all being recognized for their actions. Chen paused. The Pentagon Situation Room watched the entire mission via satellite and drone feeds. When you made that final approach through the anti-aircraft fire, when your aircraft was hit, and everyone thought you were going down, General Vance said she's never seen anything like it in 40 years of military service. Alina didn't know what to say to that. You're being flown back to the States tomorrow, Chen continued. There's a ceremony. Classified, of course, but important people want to shake your hand. I just want to see my team, make sure they're really okay. They're on the next helicopter in, should be here within the hour. Chen stood to leave, then turned back. Alina, what you did, it's going to become legend in certain circles. Ghost isn't just a call sign anymore. It's a statement, a promise. The enemy will hear that name and know they're not safe anywhere. Hassan, Vega, and Park arrived together, Park on crutches with his leg in a cast. Alina met them in the ready room, and for a moment, no one spoke. Then Hassan crossed the room and pulled her into a fierce hug. Don't you ever scare me like that again, he said roughly. When I saw your aircraft going down, I thought. I know, I'm sorry. Alina turned to Park. David, I'm so sorry. I sent you into that situation. I gave the order that. Stop. Park's voice was firm despite his injuries. You gave the order that saved my life. If we'd all stayed together, those fighters would have slaughtered us. You made the tactical decision that gave us a chance. He smiled crookedly. Plus, I got one hell of a story out of it. Not many people can say they punched out over enemy territory and lived to tell about it. Vega crossed her arms, her expression serious. Ghost, you flew through a wall of anti-aircraft fire that should have shredded you. You brought back an aircraft that had no business still flying. And you completed a mission everyone said was impossible. She paused. I've been flying for 15 years and I've never seen anything like what you did out there. It was like watching someone rewrite the laws of physics. It was just training, Alina said, uncomfortable with the praise. Bullshit, Hassan said bluntly. That wasn't just training, that was something else, something extraordinary, he grinned. So when are you going to tell us what you really learned during those 3 months? Because whatever it was, I want in on the next class. Alina smiled, thinking about Project Wraith, about the impossible missions and the pilots who'd pushed beyond every limit. Maybe someday, if they ever declassify it. I'll hold you to that, Hassan said. The flight back to the continental United States took 12 hours across multiple aircraft. Alina spent most of it sleeping, her body finally catching up on the exhaustion she'd been pushing through for days. When she woke, they were descending toward Andrews Air Force Base just outside Washington, D.C. A car was waiting on the tarmac, a black SUV with diplomatic plates. Alina was driven directly to the Pentagon, through security checkpoints she'd never seen before, into sections of the building she didn't know existed. General Patricia Vance met her in a secure briefing room. The general looked exactly as she had via video link, steel gray eyes, iron posture, the bearing of someone who'd commanded respect for decades. Captain Reyes, Vance said, extending her hand. It's an honor to meet you in person. The honor is mine, ma'am. Vance gestured to a seat. I've watched a lot of gun camera footage in my career, a lot of missions, but what you pulled off out there, she shook her head. That was artistry. You didn't just complete the mission, you made it look inevitable, like there was never any doubt you'd succeed. There was plenty of doubt, General. I got lucky. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. You created your own luck through skill and determination. Vance opened a folder. The president has signed off on a classified commendation. You're receiving the Defense Superior Service Medal, upgraded to Distinguished Flying Cross with Valor device. Normally, these are presented in public ceremonies, but given the classified nature of the mission. I understand, ma'am. However, Vance continued, there's something else. You're being promoted to major effective immediately, and you're being offered a position as lead instructor for Project Wraith. We're expanding the program, training more ghost pilots, developing advanced tactics, preparing for future contingencies. We need someone who's not just technically proficient but who understands what it means to fly these missions. Someone who's been through the fire and come out the other side. Alina's mind raced. Lead instructor. It meant leaving operational flying, at least temporarily. It meant training the next generation instead of flying missions herself. It also meant she'd never have to prove herself again. Never have to endure the mockery, the doubt, the constant questioning of her capabilities. May I have some time to think about it, ma'am? Of course, you've earned the right to choose your path. Vance stood. But Captain Major, whatever you decide, know this. You've changed what people think is possible. You've proven that courage and skill can overcome impossible odds. That's a legacy that will outlive all of us. The ceremony itself was small, just a handful of high-ranking officers in a secure room. General Vance pinned the medals to Alina's dress uniform, while a military photographer captured the moment for classified records. Hassan, Vega, and Park received their own commendations for valor and support during the mission. When it was over, Alina stood in the Pentagon parking lot watching the sun set over Washington. Her phone buzzed with a text from Colonel Brennan. "Congratulations, Major. The 422nd is proud of you. Come home when you're ready." Home, Nellie's. The squadron that had mocked her, doubted her, tried to break her. But they hadn't broken her. She'd become something stronger instead. Alina's phone rang, her father's number. "Mija, we just got a call from the Air Force. They said you did something important, but they couldn't tell us what. Are you okay?" Alina's throat tightened hearing his voice. "I'm fine, Papa. I'm better than fine. I'm proud. I hope you're proud too." "We have always been proud of you, Mija. From the day you first looked at the sky and said you wanted to fly, we knew you would do great things." They talked for another 10 minutes, about nothing and everything, about her brother's promotion in the army, about her mother's garden, about ordinary family life that felt precious and grounding after the intensity of the past week. When she hung up, Alina made her decision. She would return to Nellie's. She would face Morrison and the squadron. She would stand in that ready room not as Maria, not as the outsider, but as Major Alina Ghost Ray's proven combat veteran, the pilot who'd accomplished the impossible. And then she would accept Vance's offer. She would train the next generation of ghost pilots. She would turn her hard-won knowledge into a legacy that would protect American lives for decades to come. The C-17 transport touched down at Nellie's 3 days later. Alina descended the ramp in her dress uniform, her new rank insignia gleaming, her medals hidden under her jacket, classified commendations she could wear but never explain. The entire 422nd Squadron stood at attention on the tarmac. Colonel Brennan at the front, Hassan and Vega and Park beside him. And there, in the second row, Morrison stood with the others. Brennan saluted crisply. "Major Ray's welcome home." Alina returned the salute. Then Brennan did something unexpected. He turned to face the squadron. "Attention to orders," he announced. The squadron snapped to even stricter attention. "By order of the Secretary of the Air Force, Captain Alina Reyes is hereby promoted to the rank of Major, effective immediately, for actions taken in combat operations classified at the highest levels. Additionally, Major Reyes has been awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross with Valor device for extraordinary achievement while participating in aerial flight under conditions of grave danger." He couldn't say more. The mission details were classified, but it was enough. The message was clear. Whatever Alina had done, it was significant enough to warrant immediate promotion and the Air Force's highest decoration for air combat. The squadron erupted in applause. Morrison was the first to step forward. He came to attention and saluted with perfect precision. "Major Reyes," he said formally, then his voice dropped, audible only to her. "I was wrong about everything. I'm sorry." Alina studied his face and saw genuine contrition, genuine respect. Maybe people could change. Maybe redemption was possible. "Apology accepted, Lieutenant," she said. "Now let's move forward." "Yes, ma'am." That evening the squadron gathered at the officers' club, not for hazing or mockery, but for a genuine celebration. Hassan raised his glass in a toast. "To Ghost," he said, "the pilot who showed us what impossible really means." "To Ghost," the squadron echoed. Alina smiled, surrounded by pilots who'd become friends, by respect she'd earned through blood and sweat and refusing to give up. She thought about Collins, about all the pilots who'd come before, about the legacy she would help build. The call sign Ghost had started as a designation, become an identity, and finally transformed into a legend. But to Alina, it meant something simpler and more profound. It meant she'd found where she belonged. It meant she'd proven, to herself more than anyone, that she was exactly who she'd always known she could be. A few months later, Major Alina Ghost Reyes stood in front of her first class of Wraith candidates, men and women from every background, every corner of America, all of them facing the same doubt and determination she'd once felt. "My name is Major Reyes," she began, "but in this program I'm Ghost, and over the next 3 months I'm going to teach you how to become ghosts too, not because of the technology, not because of the aircraft, but because you'll learn to fly beyond what anyone thinks is possible. You'll learn to push past fear, past doubt, past every limitation anyone has ever placed on you." She looked at each face, seeing reflections of her younger self. "They'll tell you it can't be done. They'll tell you the odds are impossible. They'll try to make you small, to make you doubt yourselves." Alina smiled. "Let them, because when you prove them wrong, and you will, it will be that much sweeter." A young lieutenant in the front row raised her hand. "Ma'am, is it true you flew through a wall of anti-aircraft fire and survived?" "Yes." "How did you do it?" Alina thought about that question, about the real answer behind all the technical explanations and tactical analysis. "I did it because quitting wasn't an option, because the mission mattered more than fear, and because I believed, truly believed, that I was capable of more than anyone thought possible." She paused. "That's what I'm going to teach you. Not just how to fly an aircraft, but how to believe in yourselves the way I learned to believe in myself." "And if we fail?" another candidate asked. "Then you get up and try again. That's what ghosts do. We don't quit. We don't surrender. We haunt the impossible until it becomes inevitable." The class nodded, understanding beginning to dawn in their eyes. Alina Ghost Reyes smiled, ready to forge the next generation of legends. The girl they'd mocked in the barracks, the one they'd called Maria to diminish her, had become the instructor who would train America's most elite pilots. And every time a new ghost took to the skis, every time the impossible became reality, her legacy would live on. Not bad for someone they'd tried to make feel small. Not bad at all. The end.